Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I realize we have folks from all over, so let me try that again. Hello, and welcome to Mindset Mondays with DTK. This is episode number 173 in an ongoing series of live broadcasts designing for folks who've figured it out, for the folk who already understand that the way that one gets better at doing what they do is by getting better at being who they be. That's the real work. So if you'll take just a moment, click share just beneath this video. Invite your friends, your colleagues, your community to this conversation. The more voices, the richer the conversation. Whew. All right, so back in my office again after a week of travel for a blend of work and play. What is it from the quote from The Shining? All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. So it's a wonderful week of exploration and connection. And today, playing with the idea of intentionality and looking for intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. And this is one of those either and or either or yes. And by the way, for those of you who read the email when it comes out to you, one of those lovely little ADHD moments, I queued up the email, got it all completely ready, didn't click schedule. So it went out 5 minutes before broadcast. So you'll see it in your box when you check it. So again, this is sort of one of those either or both conversations. Yes, success has a different meaning for each of us. And one fun experiment is to sit down and draw a circle in the middle of the page, put the word success in it, and draw 12 spokes like you're drawing a clock. And at the end of each one of those spokes, write down a word or short phrase which you think the word success means to you. What creates that definition? What are the elements and the components of success? And if you have the question run through your head of, do I mean personal or professional? The answer is yes. There is no differentiation for this exercise. In fact, there's no differentiation, period. The way by which you measure success starts with how you define it. So draw the circle, put the word success in the middle, 12 spokes, and write down 12 words or short phrases that help you define the word success fully for you. And sit down with your partner, sit down with your spouse, sit down with a best friend, sit down with somebody you've known for ages or worked with for ages, and let them do the same thing. And then see how much overlap there is. I'd be shocked that even when you doing this with someone you've known for quite some time, if there are more than 6 that align, I'd be surprised. And that is because we confuse common language with common understanding all the time. So success has a different meaning for each of us. Always has, likely always will. But by default, most definitions you'll find are colored by the world around us, by social constructs, by external marketing. They're extrinsic measures. For me, however, success is an internal measure, right? I mean, it is an external measure. When I look for internal ones, I turn to being of value. And this is a great quote that comes from Einstein, allegedly. Strive not to be a success, but rather to be of value. Again, being of value is more of an intrinsic measure. It's easy to settle for merely being successful. Very few folk seek to be of value. And that's the piece to play with today. Value is best way to define it. It's the relative worth, merit, or importance. I think that one's from dictionary.com. Being of value is creating a sense of purpose, a direction on how you want to live your life. That's one of the beautiful things that comes out of being of value for me. Rather than simply aiming for a target like success, aim for a state. Aim to be someone who inspires others, who elevates others, who who impacts others, who has a broad impact footprint, who leaves the world better than they found it. For me, that's being of value. So, what's your target? What are you working towards? Striving to be a success or striving to be of value? And that's the question. What is it to be of value in your world? What does that look like in your world? What is it to be of value? And by the way, David, if you're here, because I can't see depending on which platform people are in from, I've forgotten to check whether that was actually an Albert Einstein quote or just one that is famously misattributed to him. Um, David Perry is a friend of mine who's in Switzerland is also a quote nerd, and I got caught last week with one that I thought was Goethe, but it turns out it wasn't. So always good to check and make sure that you've got your quotes right. The interwebs is not always the best source for accuracy, but this one again is wildly and widely attributed to Einstein, and I'm hoping this one is correct. Strive not to be a success, but rather to be of value. So, Agatha, Mariana, and the folks that are on from LinkedIn and YouTube as well, what is it to be of value in your world? And again, for me, it's always about impact. It's always about elevation. It's always about leaving this world better than I found it and leaving the folk that I encounter better than they were when I encountered them. And not better by my definition, better by theirs. And that's the piece. What clicked is, and this came up as I was putting it together as well, that this is where it gets muddy. For me, being a success is being of value. So nothing like making this really clear and collapsing it together. When you give, Agata says, when you give value to others, the success will follow automatically, right? And there, when you are of value to others, success is often the metric that's tucked on you. Thank you, David. Glad you're here. Yeah, had to laugh when you said allegedly. Yeah, I'm scarred from the last time, David. But again, I love what you're saying here. When you give value to others, the success will follow automatically. Um, and this is where I was speaking to this being about intention. If one's intention is just to seek success, that can lead to a whole different set of actions and different outcomes, as opposed to leaning into seeking to be of value, right? And as Parisa says, value is a leading indicator. Being measured, being named a success or called successful is the lag indicator. And Parisa and I have had conversations like this before. We're obsessed with the lead indicators because lag indicators are just forensics. It's like having an accountant that just does your taxes and never gives you any advice, any guidance, any tutelage, or insights along the way. They're not a reactive accountant is a forensic accountant, although that's another term of art. And a more proactive consultative accountant, that's the lead influence and lead impact that one needs to be, in my mind, of value. So yes, being of value is often the lead indicator of being successful. And where's your intention? Is your intention to be marked as a success? Most often, being called a success, you can't label yourself. One cannot label themselves a success the way they can be labeled as success externally, given our social constructs of what success is and its extrinsic nature. It's like calling yourself an ally. You don't get to call yourself an ally. You can seek to be an ally. You can wish to be. You can act in a way that you hope is being an ally. But the only one that can call you as an ally are those who are served by your allyship. Same as success, but being of value. Setting your intentions on being of value, being of service, is how one is or be's of value. I love when grammar falls apart. So again, Parisa, love that. So in your world, Parisa, what is it to be of value? Parisa, thank you. She also said, but we can experience the joy of being of value. What clicks as I see David on this broadcast is I want to look into the philosophical senses of being of value. I've been obsessed with a podcast called Philosophize This, and I'm still in the late Hellenic period or Hellenistic period. So there's so much more to play with, and there is so much opportunity to define what value is and how one can be of value. And again, I always like pulling this up to the simplest level. When we set our intention to strive to be of value rather than being satisfied with merely being a success or labeled a success, what changes in your world when you set your intention on being of value? As we emerge at whatever stage our particular country is in, emerging from lockdown and contracted businesses and society and culture and mobility, as we emerge into this next new abnormal, what is it to be of value? What is it to re-engage in a way that serves? Agata says, be of value for her means not only to serve others, but also do it in alignment with my own values. So as I read that, what came up was, wow, that's being successful. So again, these two get conflated and get muddy all the time. And yes, being of value is serving others. And I'll throw in being successful is doing that in a way that's in alignment with your own values. So I'm arguing against what I started with success. So what I want to offer you this week is to play with that idea. What is it to be of value in your world? And play with that this week. Take it out into your world. Look through the lens of being of value. And just notice. Notice what changes as you strive to not to be a success, but rather to be of value. What changes in your world? What impact shifts do you notice? And what comes back your way by choosing to be of value? So go play with this. Have fun this week. Be of value. And come back next week. I look forward to the next conversation. Be well.